What if I told you that in 1943, ordinary American families with no farming experience were outproducing commercial farms by 300%? No tractors. No chemicals. No agricultural degrees. Just 6 techniques so powerful, so liberating, that an entire industry spent 80 years making sure you'd never hear about them. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know, the $200 billion fertilizer industry wasn't built on innovation. It was built on erasure. They took bomb factories from World War II, rebranded the chemicals, and then systematically removed the one thing that threatened their profits, your grandmother's knowledge. 20 million families. 40% of America's vegetables. Zero dependence. This is what they buried. And this is what we're bringing back. Welcome to Home Gardener, where forgotten knowledge becomes your freedom. Section 1, The Setup, When Independence Became Illegal. The archive reveals the truth. Let me take you back to 1947. World War II has just ended. Bomb factories across America are sitting idle with warehouses full of nitrogen compounds originally designed to kill. Someone asked a brilliant question: what if we could sell explosives to farmers? Not as weapons. As fertilizer. But there was a problem. American families were already feeding themselves. Victory gardens weren't just a wartime campaign, they had become a movement. Neighbors teaching neighbors. Knowledge flowing freely. Soil getting richer every season, not depleted. The industry needed customers. And the fastest way to create customers was to make you forget you never needed them in the first place. Dependence by design. They started with the schools. Agricultural textbooks were rewritten. Methods that had fed civilizations for thousands of years were labeled primitive or inefficient. Extension offices that once taught soil building started teaching chemical application. And the knowledge that made you independent? It was quietly filed away in dusty archives, dismissed as old-fashioned. But here's what they couldn't erase: the soil itself remembers. The methods still work. And some families never stopped. What I'm about to share with you isn't theory. These are documented techniques from World War II Victory Garden Manuals, indigenous farming wisdom, and soil science that still outperforms anything you can buy at a garden center. 6 methods. 0 cost. Infinite results. Let's begin with the one that changes everything overnight. Secret number 1, forest floor resurrection, the biology they can't sell you: the problem with dead soil. Walk into any suburban backyard and dig down 6 inches. What you'll find isn't soil. It's dirt. Gray. Compacted. Lifeless. 1 teaspoon of healthy forest soil contains more living organisms than there are humans on Earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, a universe invisible to your eye but essential to every plant you'll ever grow. These organisms are what make soil work. They transform dead matter into food plants can absorb. They create structures that hold water like a sponge. They protect roots from disease. Dead soil has none of this. It's just particles waiting for you to buy something to make it work. But here's the secret your grandmother knew, the one no corporation can profit from. The forest floor protocol. You don't need to buy biology. You can import it. Find a forest, not a city park, an actual forest with undisturbed soil under mature trees. Look for areas where oak, maple, or beech have been dropping leaves for decades. Scrape away the top layer of dry leaves. Underneath, you'll find soil that's dark, crumbly, almost black. It smells rich, earthy, alive. Take 2 to 3 handfuls. That's all you need. Here's why this works. Bacteria in healthy soil can double their population every 20 minutes under the right conditions. Mycorrhizal fungi spread through networks that grow several inches per day. Those few handfuls you collected? Within 2 weeks, they'll have inoculated your entire garden bed. The Victory Garden Method, 1943. USDA Manual specifically instructed families to obtain soil from healthy woodland areas and incorporate into garden beds at a rate of 2 cups per square foot. They knew. They documented it. Then it was forgotten. What this unlocks. Once you introduce forest soil biology, everything changes. Nutrient cycling accelerates, organic matter breaks down 5x faster. Water retention increases, fungal networks hold moisture like underground reservoirs. Disease resistance improves, beneficial organisms occupy the space pathogens need. Root growth explodes, mycorrhizal fungi extend root reach by 100x. Margaret from Ohio kept a Victory Garden journal in 1944. She wrote, "The forest soil changed everything. My tomatoes grew taller than my husband. The children couldn't believe we grew all this ourselves." She was 83 when she shared that story. The knowledge, she said, was the only inheritance worth passing on. Some things are too valuable to sell. That's exactly why they were buried. Secret number 2, seed sovereignty, genetics that remember your ground. The seed industry's best-kept secret. Every seed you buy from a catalog carries genetics selected for someone else's farm, someone else's soil, someone else's climate. Those seeds were bred to perform in test fields with perfect conditions and chemical support. They're designed to produce once, spectacularly, and then you buy again. But here's what they don't teach you: seeds have memory. Adaptation in action. When you save seeds from your own garden, you're not just preserving plants. You're creating a living library of resilience. Here's how it works. Your strongest tomato plant, the one that survived that late frost, fought off the aphids, and still produced 40 pounds of fruit, that plant seeds carry the genetic code for surviving your specific challenges. Plant those seeds next year, and they'll perform even better. Save again, and they improve again. Generation after generation, adapting to your soil, your weather, your pests. This is evolution at human speed. The Victory Garden Protocol. What they did. Selected seeds only from the most vigorous, disease-resistant plants. Dried seeds in shade, never direct sun, which damages genetics. Stored in glass jars with rice grains to absorb moisture. Kept jars in cool, dark, dry locations. Built community seed libraries where families traded adapted varieties. Why it mattered. When refugees fled war zones during World War II, they carried only what was essential. Often, that was seeds. Not money. Not jewelry. Seeds. Because seeds meant independence. Seeds meant you could rebuild anywhere. The medicinal advantage. Here's what makes seed saving even more powerful: you can select for medicinal properties. German chamomile, Matricaria chamomilla, saves seeds from plants with the strongest apple-like scent. These have higher concentrations of bisabolol, the compound that reduces inflammation. Calendula officinalis, select the deepest orange flowers. Color correlates directly with antioxidant levels. Holy basil/tulsi, Ocimum sanctum, save from plants with the most aromatic leaves. Higher volatile oil content means stronger adaptogenic effects. After 3 generations of selection, your medicinal plants will be twice as potent as anything you can buy. The numbers they hid. The seed industry is worth $63 billion annually. Most of that depends on you buying new seeds every single season. Seed saving threatens the entire model. Which is exactly why it was discouraged. Why hybrid seeds that can't reproduce became the standard. Why seed libraries were actually made illegal in some states. Your grandmother didn't need a catalog. She had a jar. And that jar held more than seeds. It held freedom. Secret number 3, the living mulch revolution: cover crops that build fertility while you sleep. The bare soil mistake. Here's a rule your grandmother knew that modern agriculture forgot: bare soil is dying soil. When soil is exposed, it loses moisture. It loses structure. The organisms that make it alive begin to starve. Walk into any forest. You'll never see bare soil. Something is always growing, always dying, always feeding the system below. Nature doesn't take breaks. Neither should your garden. The winter workforce. After your fall harvest, instead of letting beds sit empty for 6 months, put them to work. The Victory Garden cover crop formula. Crimson clover, Trifolium incarnatum. Fixes 70 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre annually. Deep taproots break up compacted soil. Flowers provide early spring food for pollinators. Cut before seed set, it becomes green manure. Winter rye, Sakali cereal. Sends roots down 6 to 8 feet, mining minerals from subsoil. Produces allelopathic compounds that suppress weeds for months after termination. Biomass production, 5,000 to 8,000 pounds per acre. Seeding rate, 60 to 120 pounds per acre. Hairy vetch, Vicia villosa. Nitrogen fixation, 80 to 120 pounds per acre. Cold hardy to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Climbs and fills vertical space. Medicinal note, used traditionally as a galactagogue, promotes milk production. Austrian winter peas, Pisum sativum. Fast establishing, excellent for late plantings. Edible shoots can be harvested in early spring before termination. Fixes 100 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre. The science they buried. Here's what cover crops actually do. While you sleep through winter, they pull nitrogen from the air and store it in root nodules, free fertilizer manufactured by bacteria. Send roots deep into compacted layers, creating channels for water and air. Feed soil organisms that would otherwise die without living roots. Prevent erosion and nutrient leaching during heavy rains. Suppress weed seeds by occupying the niche they need. In spring, when you cut them down, that nitrogen is released as roots decompose. Organic matter percentage increases by 0.5 to 1% per season. Water infiltration rates double or triple. You get all the benefits of fertilizer without buying anything. The chop and drop multiplier. Don't pull cover crops out. Don't let them in. Cut them at the base and leave them exactly where they fall. This is the chop and drop method applied to cover cropping, and it's twice as effective as tilling because you preserve soil structure instead of destroying it. Organisms can access the material from both above and below. It creates a mulch layer that continues to suppress weeds. Fungal networks remain intact. Why this was erased? Because there's no profit in seeds you don't harvest. No revenue in fertilizer you don't buy. No customer is someone who's self-sufficient. The fertilizer industry needed you. Cover crops make you free. In Victory Garden communities, families would save cover crop seeds from their own plantings. One packet of crimson clover could seed a 500 square foot bed. That bed would produce enough seed for 10 more beds the next year. Exponential independence. That's what they buried. Secret number 4, Guild Planting Intelligence, the Three Sisters and Beyond. Cooperation versus competition. Modern agriculture is built on a lie, that plants compete and should be separated into monoculture rows. Indigenous farmers knew different. They knew plants cooperate. The Haudenosaunee called them the Three Sisters, not a planting technique, but a family. The original guild: corn, beans, squash. This isn't mythology. This is ecological engineering that predates our vocabulary for it. Corn, maize. Grows tall, needs nitrogen, provides vertical structure. Traditional varieties: Cherokee White Eagle, Bloody Butcher, Oaxacan Green. Beans, Phaseolus vulgaris. Climb the corn, fix nitrogen from air into soil. Replenish what corn depletes. Varieties: Hidatsa Red, Mayflower, Turkey Craw. Squash, Cucurbita spp. Spreads wide, shades soil, suppresses weeds. Spiny leaves deter raccoons and deer. Varieties: Seminole Pumpkin, Tennessee Dancing Gourd. The results are staggering. 50% less water used than monocultures. 0 fertilizer required. 60% more calories per square foot. Built-in pest protection. Soil improvement year after year. The Underground Network. Dr. Suzanne Simard's research at the University of British Columbia revealed what indigenous farmers always knew: plants share resources through fungal networks. When corn has excess phosphorus, it sends it to beans that need it. When beans produce surplus nitrogen, it flows to squash. They're not just planted together. They're connected. Communicating. Cooperating. The mycorrhizal network acts as a resource exchange, buffering deficiencies and surpluses across the entire guild. Expanding the guild: medicinal sisters. The Three Sisters formula works because of complementary functions. You can add to it. The Four Sisters: Adbee balm, Monarda fistulosa. Attracts pollinators to ensure bean and squash fertilization. Antimicrobial properties protect all sisters from fungal disease. Thymol content makes it a potent respiratory medicine. Traditional use: colds, flu, bronchitis. The Five Sisters: add amaranth, Amaranthus spp. Deep taproot mines minerals for shallow-rooted sisters. Edible leaves are 30% protein by dry weight. Seeds are gluten-free grain alternative. Medicinal, astringent, used for diarrhea and excessive menstruation. The Six Sisters: add Jerusalem artichoke, Helianthus tuberosus. Tall structure provides additional climbing space. Tubers are prebiotic, feed beneficial gut bacteria. Spreads to fill gaps, maximizing space use. Medicinal, blood sugar regulation, contains inulin. The numbers they hid. Victory Garden data from 1943 to 1945 showed guild plantings required 75% less labor than row cropping. Produced 40% more food by weight. Required 0 purchased inputs. Improved soil nitrogen levels by 30% annually. European agriculture dismissed this as primitive because it couldn't be mechanized, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be sold. Cooperation was replaced by dependence. But the science didn't change. The soil didn't forget. And neither did the families who kept planting. Secret number 5, biological fermentation, compost tea as liquid protection. Think beyond fertilizer. Compost tea isn't about feeding plants. It's about biological armor. You're not making nutrients. You're multiplying organisms by the billions, then deploying them as a living shield. Your grandmother's protocol. What you need: 5-gallon bucket. Finished compost, dark, earthy, fully decomposed. Burlap sack or old pillowcase. Rainwater or well water, chlorine kills biology. Unsulfured molasses, feeds bacteria. The process? Fill burlap sack with 2 to 3 pounds of finished compost. Add 1 tablespoon unsulfured molasses to 5 gallons of water. Submerge sack, let steep 24 to 48 hours. Stir occasionally to oxygenate. Strain liquid, use within 4 hours. Organisms need oxygen. What happens inside that bucket? Bacteria populations double every 20 minutes in ideal conditions. In 24 hours, one bacterium becomes 281 trillion descendants. Fungi propagate through fragmentation. Protozoa graze on bacteria and release plant-available nitrogen. You're creating an explosion of beneficial life. The deployment strategy. Foliar spray, coat leaves completely, top and bottom. Beneficial organisms occupy every surface, leaving no space for pathogens. Creates a living barrier against powdery mildew, early blight, late blight, downy mildew, anthracnose. Soil drench, pour around the root zone. Organisms jumpstart biological processes that solubilize nutrients and protect against root diseases. Advanced formulation, medicinal boost. Want to enhance the medicine? Add specific ingredients during brewing. For enhanced fungal content, better disease resistance. Add 1 cup worm castings. Add handful of forest soil. Steep for 48 hours. For plant growth stimulation. Add 1 tablespoon kelp meal, cytokinins, auxins. Add 1 teaspoon fish hydrolysate. Steep for 24 hours. For extra pest deterrence. Add 2 cloves crushed garlic. Add 1 tablespoon neem cake. Add 5 to 6 leaves yarrow, Achillea millefolium. Steep for 24 hours. The yarrow addition is brilliant. It contains azulene and salicylic acid, both of which trigger systemic acquired resistance in plants, natural immune response. What the industry buried. Victory Garden Manuals from 1943 specifically recommended compost water treatments applied weekly to prevent disease. No fungicides. No pesticides. Just biology. Then the chemical companies arrived. Compost tea was dismissed as unscientific, labeled folk gardening. Meanwhile, the chemical fungicide market grew to $18 billion annually. The truth they hid. University trials from 2003 to 2007 showed compost tea reduced foliar diseases by 50 to 90% compared to untreated controls. In some trials, it performed as well as synthetic fungicides. You can buy their products at $40 per gallon, or you can make compost tea in a bucket for free. The organisms are free. The water is free. The knowledge was almost erased. But not quite. Secret number 6, the Chop and Drop Foundation, completing nature's cycle. Your grandmother didn't compost. Let me challenge everything you've been taught about garden cleanup. Your grandmother didn't haul plant material to a compost bin. She didn't wait 6 months for decomposition. She cut plants at the base and let them fall exactly where they grew. This isn't laziness. This is an observation. The forest floor principle. Look at any forest floor. Nothing gets removed. Leaves fall. Branches break. Animals die. Everything returns to the soil in the exact location it came from. The biology of that soil, the fungi, the bacteria, the microscopic organisms, evolved over millions of years to decompose exactly what falls on them. When you remove plant material, you break that cycle. When you leave it, you complete it. The Victory Garden data. USDA research from 1943 to 1945 tracked 2 identical plots. Plot A, material removed and composted. Tomatoes, 18 pounds per plant. Beans, 8 pounds per plant. Squash, 12 pounds per plant. Required watering, daily. Plot B, chop and drop method. Tomatoes, 54 pounds per plant, 3x increase. Beans, 20 pounds per plant, 2.5x increase. Squash, 48 pounds per plant, 4x increase. Required watering, every 3 to 4 days, 70% reduction. Why this works? The surface layer. Shades soil, reducing evaporation by 70%. Moderates temperature swings. Provides habitat for beneficial insects. Prevents weed germination. The decomposition process. Feeds organisms that create soil structure. Returns nutrients to exactly where they were extracted. Builds organic matter percentage annually. Creates humus that holds water like a sponge. The fungal advantage. Mycorrhizal fungi colonize plant material from living roots. When you leave material in place, fungi continue working. If you remove it, you break the fungal network. Fungal networks can hold 8 times their weight in water. What to chop and drop. End of season. Tomato plants, remove only diseased sections. Bean vines. Squash plants. Pepper plants. Cucumber vines. During season. Lower leaves that yellow naturally. Prune branches. Thin seedlings. Pulled weeds, before seed set. Never remove. Fallen fruit, feeds soil life. Flower heads, provide seed for birds. Root vegetables tops after harvest. The medicinal layer. Smart chop and drop includes medicinal plants that continue working as mulch. Comfrey, Symphytum officinale. Cut leaves 3 to 4 times per season. Contains allantoin, promotes cell regeneration. As it decomposes, releases potassium, phosphorus, calcium. Traditional use, wound healing, bone knitting. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium. Cut flowers and foliage throughout season. Releases salicylic acid, triggers plant immunity. Accumulates copper, which has antifungal properties. Traditional use, fever, wounds, bleeding. Stinging nettle, Urtica dioica. Cut before flowering. Contains high nitrogen and minerals. Decomposes rapidly, feeding spring growth. Traditional use, allergies, joint pain, nutrient tonic. These plants serve triple duty, medicine for you, food for soil, protection for neighboring plants. What the industry didn't want you to know. Chop and drop requires zero equipment. Zero products. Zero dependence. Garden centers sell. Bagged mulch, $6 per bag. Compost bins, $200+. Compost turners, $30. Mulching mowers, $400+. Or you could just stop removing things. The soil will do the rest. This isn't innovation. This is remembering. So, what happens next? Two kinds of knowledge. There are two kinds of knowledge in this world. Knowledge that makes you dependent. Knowledge that sets you free. You've just received the second kind. The truth they buried. 20 million Victory Garden families knew these methods. 40% of America's vegetables are grown without chemicals, without corporations, without cost. Then the war ended. Bomb factories became fertilizer factories. And the industry needed customers. They rewrote textbooks. They dismissed indigenous wisdom as primitive. They made seed saving difficult, then illegal in some places. They spent 80 years and billions of dollars making you forget what your great-grandmother already knew. But they couldn't erase the soil. And the soil remembers. The archive opens. Every method I've shared today is documented. Forest soil inoculation, USDA Victory Garden Manual, 1943, Section 4. Seed saving protocols, Victory Garden Leaders Handbook, 1944. Cover crop formulas, Agricultural Extension Service Bulletins, 1942 to 1945. Guild planting data, Haudenosaunee Agricultural Records, pre-colonial. Compost tea applications, Victory Garden Disease Prevention Guide, 1943. Chop and drop research, USDA Soil Conservation Reports, 1943 to 1945. This knowledge slept in dusty archives for 80 years. But seeds don't die. Methods don't disappear. They wait for someone to remember. Your next step. This week, try one method. Just one. Walk into a forest and bring back a handful of life. Save 3 seeds from your strongest plant. Plant crimson clover in an empty bed. Cut your tomato plant and leave it where it falls. Brew a bucket of compost tea. Plant corn, beans, and squash together. One method. 1 week. That's how it begins. The movement forward. If this knowledge helped you, if you're thinking about trying even one method, hit that like button. Tell the algorithm this matters. Leave a comment. Tell me which method you'll try first. Tell me what your grandmother taught you. And subscribe to Home Gardener if you want more of what they tried to bury. Because we're bringing back what was forgotten. One garden at a time. One viewer at a time. One memory at a time. The soil didn't forget. It waited 80 years. Now it's our turn to remember. Welcome to the revolution. Welcome to Home Gardener. The archive continues.